For almost 2 decades, Thomas Quick was known as Sweden's worst serial killer. Quick was convicted of 8 murders and admitted to killing more than 20 others. But it turns out he wasn't a serial killer, rather he was a serial liar. Thomas Quick was actually the alter ego of Sture Bergwall, a mentally ill man who was jailed for a botched bank robbery 23 years ago. As he neared release, Bergwall told therapists he'd committed a series of bizarre and grotesque murders. But it took the authorities years to realise he was simply making it all up, with the last 3 murder convictions against him only overturned a few days ago. Philip Williams travelled to Sweden to meet the serial killer who wasn't.
These are the eyes of a monster. A killer so depraved he readily confessed to 30 murders, sexually assaulting men, women and children. Crimes committed throughout Scandinavia. His newly adopted name, Thomas Quick, synonymous with evil. But it was all a lie. Why did you start making these confessions?
Först och främst så fick jag droger. Det var det absolut mest centrala. Jag fick droger. Sen fick jag också en slags tillhörighet på det här stället tillsammans med psykologen och några andra personer.
So in effect you're saying you were creating these fantasies to feed your drug habit?
Ja, absolut, precis.
Sture Bergwall's drug-fed confessions meant an extra 2 decades in this secure psychiatric ward. But he says his therapists, the police and prosecutors, failed to pick up obvious mistakes in his horrifying stories. How did you research each particular case?
Väldigt lite. Väldigt lite. Den mesta informationen fick jag via förhören. Polismannen som förhörde mig gav mig information undan för undan. Och det var ju frågan om många förhör i varje fall. Och den vägen kom den stora mängden information.
So in some ways they were interrogating you, but in another way you were interrogating them.
Ja, det var ett samspel helt enkelt.
Do you have any doubts at all that he's completely innocent of all those crimes?
No doubt whatsoever.
Ever since Sture Bergwall recanted his confessions in 2008, lawyer Thomas Olsson has been trying to overturn the convictions. He says police and prosecutors should never have gone after him in the first place.
He can, for example, in the case with the Norwegian girl Therese Johannessen, he describes how he comes to a small village with a lot of wooden house in the middle of the day, and he sees this blonde girl coming in her trousers and he kills her. In reality, the girl had black hair, she was living in a suburb, and it was 8 in the evening and it was raining. So that was his first story, and then they helped him to change that. So step by step he changed his story that she was blonde, that it was a suburb and not a village, and so on. The relatives to the victims have the right to know why this person, Thomas Quick, could invade their memory and their grief, and who is responsible for letting him do that.
The man I'm about to meet knows all too well the pain inflicted by the false confessions.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you very much. Can I come aboard?
Yes, please.
The welcome is warm, but the memories are chilling. Bjorn Asplund's 11-year-old son, Johan, disappeared in 1980. Sture Bergwall, his name then changed to Thomas Quick, admitted he had murdered him.
I miss my son as my son, and I miss also Johan as a good friend.
Bjorn Asplund always believed another man he knows murdered his son, but he had to endure the pain of listening in court to Thomas Quick detailing a sickening but fictitious killing.
How he took his body and slaughtered my son, and he ate some parts of the body, and, you know, the most horrible things.
Who do you blame?
The prosecutor and the team around him, and his therapist and his doctors, they put me and not only me, all the relatives to his so-called victims. They are the ones who are responsible for this, not Thomas. He's also a victim.
You always believed he was innocent?
Yeah.
En del säger att han är Sveriges värsta seriemördare.
He was not alone. Investigative journalist Hannes Rustrom was also sceptical, and eventually in 2008, Sture Bergwall admitted his horrendous lies. A book and a documentary detailing a story of drug-induced confessions and botched investigations triggered a series of acquittals. So you probably know more about this man than he knows about himself.
Yes, I think I would have won Jeopardy if he was the topic.
Journalist Jenny Kutum worked for 5 years on the case with Hannes Rustom, who died last year. What evidence did you find linking this man to these murders?
None. When I started turning all the stones, it turns out there were no physical evidence, no technical evidence, and really no indications that Sture Bergwall was supposedly the killer.
What would have happened if you and he had not investigated this?
I think that we still would have a serial killer in Sweden, even though he didn't do any of the murders.
One of the most disturbing aspects of this whole story is the fact that the real killers are still out there. They haven't been caught. They got away with murder to date. But even if police reopen those cold cases, the statute of limitations means they'll never be convicted and justice will not be served.
We don't know where he is. We don't know how much he had to suffer before he was killed. And we don't even have a place to go. We haven't had the opportunity to bury him.
And in the meantime, the man you believe murdered your son is free.
His killer is still out there free.
Do you think you'll ever get justice?
No.
Despite the acquittals, legal process means Sture Bergwall will remain locked up for months. There's been no apology from any authority to date, but when he is finally free, he'd like to meet the relatives of the victims he's so traumatised. What would you say to them?
Förlåt. Det är det enda jag kan säga.
This is obviously a very emotional area for you.
Absolut.
Tell me why.
Därför att jag idag förstår hur illa de har farit av det som skedde under Thomas Quick. Hur illa det var.
Sture Bergwall says the Thomas Quick monster he was is dead. He told me when he is eventually released, he just wants to walk free in the forest. But what remains are the unsolved cases, the grief, and a medical and legal system that utterly failed, and demands for a full independent inquiry to ensure it never happens again.